Welcome back to the show. We got Congressman Bruce Westerman is back with us. Bruce, how are you this morning?
Good morning, Paul. I'm doing well. Good to be with you.
Yes, sir. It is always a pleasure to have you on. So I know things in D.C., especially when the House of Representatives are dominated by Democrats. I know it's tough, but what are some of the things that you're working on right now?
Well, we're on our so-called August recess, so spending a lot of time in the district and getting out and visiting constituents. Been doing a lot of tours. I'm actually out in California this morning because an organization called the Western Caucus, which is about 150 House members and I think 20 or so senators who work on issues focused on mainly natural resources and rural issues. I told them yesterday you could call this the Rural Caucus or the Natural Resources Caucus, but it's been around for quite some time, and these are issues that are very important to the West, forestry being one of the big ones, and water issues and mining. And we had a meeting out here to visit some of the fire-damaged areas and also to see some of the work that the Forest Service has been doing since some of those policies that I've worked on so much got passed in the Farm Bill and in some other pieces of legislation. So it's been a pretty informative trip. I've got another tour this morning, and then we're doing a press conference on some new forestry stuff, and then I'll be heading back home to Arkansas. So it's
well, first of all,
been a busy week.
Yeah, thank you for calling in. I mean, it's 5:30 where you are right now then, right?
Yeah, that's nice. Good way to start the morning.
I appreciate you getting up so early. Okay. Well, so, hey, speaking on the forestry thing, you being a forester, forest management, is that why California has such bad wildfires? Because they've got some environmental hesitancies to go in and actually clean out the forest, the underbrush, things like that?
Oh, yeah, it's played a huge role in it. And you can just, you can pretty much map or chart the wildfire intensity and the wildfire frequencies. And a lot of it started when the infamous spotted owl issue began back in the 90s. It took a while for these forests to grow in, but now we're just seeing the results of no management. But fortunately, we're starting to see that change a little bit. I was thrilled to see some sites where there was active management taking place on Forest Service land, and I described it yesterday more as we're seeing a triage operation. I mean, we've got over 80 million acres of federal lands that are subject to catastrophic wildfire right now, and they're treating thousands of acres out here. So you do the math on that, and it's going to take a long, long time. But what they're focusing on are something called the wildland-urban interface. This is where you have home and the forest merging together and doing thinning operations around homes and businesses, and also along utility corridors where you've got these power lines that are in areas that have dead trees and overgrown trees right next to the power line. That's how the big campfire started. So they're doing projects to thin along the power lines as far as 2,000 feet on each side of the power line. And then also a huge issue out here, and we're so blessed with water in Arkansas that I think we take it for granted sometimes, but these forest fires devastate the watersheds and the drinking water and rivers and lakes where people recreate. They just get hammered by silt and ash and things like that when you get these fires, and then the rains come along or the snow and the snow melt. So that's where they're really focusing right now, is on the and also the transportation corridors along the highways. They're doing a lot of thinning operations along the highways because that's where a lot of fires start. You know, people are pulling trailers and chains drag and create sparks, or somebody throws a cigarette out the window, which I can't imagine people doing that out here, but most fires start
in California. Yeah.
Yeah, they want to smoke all of their cigarette out here. They don't waste any.
Yeah, deep shame. They would carry that with them for a while. Oh man, we're talking to Congressman Bruce Westerman.
I mean, it's such a tinderbox in areas. I mean, I don't know what would go through somebody's mind to be driving down the road and think, I'll just flick my cigarette butt out here and burn up thousands of acres.
No, you're right. It is a real concern. I just meant, I'm surprised tobacco is even legal in California.
Well, certain kinds of tobacco are promoted out here.
Oh, really? I did not know that.
Yeah, the native variety, the marijuana. They smoke that. They smoke a lot of that.
Oh yeah, definitely. So you recently, Ryan Norris from he's the Arkansas State Director for Americans for Prosperity. He commended you as well as your colleague Congressman Crawford, who we just spoke to, Senator Cotton, for voting against the latest budget. And I think, there's a lot of people who are at least trying, I don't know if they're going to have much luck, but they're trying to get the national conversation refocused on the debt and the fact that our fiscal house is not in order. What's your response to that?
Well, it's not been in order for a long time, and the problem is spending. And I've just beat my head against the wall on that since before going to Congress and while in Congress. And if the first thing we got to do is get the truth out of D.C. and get more transparency in what's actually happening. And there were people just railing against the Tax Cut and Jobs Act bill, saying that it was going to increase the deficit. Well, you can look and see that tax revenue did not decrease with the Tax Cut and Jobs Act. It actually still increased. So the federal government got more money the year after the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act than it had the year before. The problem is the spending increased a lot more than it did the year before. And the way the Congressional Budget Office scores this stuff is they have a baseline that has a built-in increase in it that might be 5 or 6%. And if the increase in spending isn't as much as CBO projects it should be, then they'll count that as a spending cut. So you could grow spending by 3 or 4%, and CBO put a report out that said you cut programs by 2% because it didn't meet the 5 or 6% built-in rise that they said should take place, and that stuff just doesn't get reported on. So at the time we're spending more money, we have people complaining about why did the budget get cut. It's a broken system when you get into the details of it, Paul.
What are your thoughts?
And it's
what are your thoughts, Congressman, on the trade deal with Mexico and Canada? Nancy Pelosi doesn't seem to want to do anything on that, right? But it's a big deal.
That deal that could have been signed into law 2 months ago. There's bipartisan support in the House and the Senate to pass it, and Pelosi won't put it on the floor. It's maddening to me that something that could be that critical to the economy, and we can't even get it on the floor to vote on it. So, the only thing there's one kind of official reason that I've heard is that she doesn't want it to pass without a majority of Democratic votes. I don't really believe that. The other one is, and the one I do believe, is she doesn't want to give any semblance of a victory to President Trump, and doesn't want to see the economy doing well right now because that wouldn't fare well for her and her cronies in the next election.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. That's the one I would certainly agree with. Plus, she is facing pressure, I'm sure, from AOC and the squad. But I think, you've got liberals that are actually hoping for a recession. You have some speculating that the the fluctuations that we've seen in the market this week have actually been a dry run to do this again next year, right before the 2020 elections. So, I mean, I don't know. I don't think the Democrats like the economy because it does nothing but help the president continue, for another 4 years. And so it's kind of odd that we are so, and I'm sure the Republicans have done this too, back when, to some degree, when Obama maybe here or there, but there seems to be definitely a lot more coordination between the media, the Democrats, and they definitely would love to have a recession if it meant getting Trump out of office. I don't think there's anything bad that they wouldn't mind happening if it meant that Trump would not get another 4 years.
I think you're right. And, Republicans did oppose President Obama a lot. I opposed President Obama a lot because I thought his policies were going to hurt the country. And, I disagreed with the policies he had. This is something that most people will agree will help the country, will help the economy. And, it's a lot different when you're doing it strictly for political reasons and not for convictions on what you think would be best for the country. And if you go back to the Mueller report, it was sickening to me that there were people actually hoping that a sitting president of the United States had committed collusion. What, as an American, should we hope that any person that got elected to president had committed collusion? That's just crazy.
Mm-hmm. And yet, and here's the thing, and yet, in spite of all of that, he had this rally in New Hampshire last night, where you have the enthusiasm, you have all of these people in the arena, you have people standing outside watching on a giant screen. I mean, I don't know if there's anybody on the Democratic side that's running for president that can compete with that level of enthusiasm and attendance.
Yeah, I don't think so either, especially when they're going one-on-one against Trump. And if you look at who's in the field, but again, we're a long ways away from the election in today's world, where it's instant news, and what you think the day is going to be focused on when you get up by noon, it may be totally different.
That's true. That's certainly true. Congressman Bruce Westerman, I appreciate you coming on as always. Thanks for getting up with us. And I know, it's 5:30 in California where you are. Best of luck on your tour and your rest of your time back in Arkansas. I hope you enjoy it, sir.
All right, Paul. Have a great one.
All righty. You too. Have a great weekend.